The questions keep coming for Supreme Court nominee Elena Kagan, but since she's toed the line with this White House as Solicitor General on issues like Obamacare, say, can Kagan think and act for herself?
Greg Craig, the former chief counsel to President Obama, who's known you for some time, I understand, said of you, she is largely a progressive in the mold of Obama himself, close quote. Do you agree with that?
Well, Senator Sessions, I'm not quite sure how I would characterize my politics, but one thing I do know is that my politics would be, must be, have to be completely separate from my judging.
That was Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions, the ranking Republican on the Judiciary Committee, and he joins me now. Good to see you, Senator. After today's session, how do you feel about Kagan? Have you changed your mind?
You know, I felt very uneasy this morning when she talked about what happened at Harvard. The White House has been incorrectly spinning how she conducted herself as dean at Harvard, where she led the effort to without legal authority, reverse Harvard's policy of giving full access to the military to the recruiting offices. And so I thought she was less than forthcoming, was really saddened to see the kind of lack of candor that I would like to have seen. So that to me was a downer.
You know, you've been very critical of her, and you say that she has serious deficiencies as a candidate. Tell us what you mean by that.
Well, she has the least legal experience of anyone in the last 50 years at least. She's never tried a lawsuit. She's never been a private practitioner either. So she hasn't been a judge. She hasn't been a private practitioner. She's never really been in the harness of the law, and that's when you learn how the system really works as a practicing lawyer or judge day after day. She's been in the academic world. She's been in the policy world, and the combination of academic visionaries and policy advocates and political advocates, along with a judicial philosophy that admires the most activist judges we've ever had on the federal bench, that indicates to me we could have a toxic combination of a very aggressive justice who would be in sync with some of the more activist rulings we've been seeing. And what's wrong with that is they don't faithfully follow the law, but use their power to define the meaning of words in our Constitution and law in ways that advance what they'd like to see happen.
Senator, you don't believe her then when she says that I would keep my political ideas to myself?
I think that just like Justice Sotomayor, when they say they're going to follow the law, they follow it according to their way of interpreting it. And if they have a loose way of interpreting it, then they can honestly say, I guess, that I'm going to follow the law. But those of us in the Senate who have to vote on this have to decide if we believe they are sufficiently rigorous in their analysis and fair in their construction of the statute. And if they're outside what ought to be, they shouldn't be on the bench.
You know, one of your criticisms, of course, that she hasn't sat on the bench. She's never been a judge. But there have been other Supreme Court nominees who went on to be justices of great renown, like Thurgood Marshall, who were also not judges. Does that preclude somebody from being a good Supreme Court justice?
No, that does not. But I've got to tell you, when you have less than 2 years of private practice, when you've had about 14 months as Solicitor General, and the rest of it being in politics or policy or law school, that is a very thin record. I just have to say, I learned what I really believe about the law from the practice of law. And there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of lawyers who are really skilled at all of this, and that's the kind of thinking and rigor that we need in a Supreme Court justice.
Well, I want to ask you about these health care reforms, because it's likely the Supreme Court might have to rule on this lawsuit coming from state attorney generals who are saying, hey, you know, parts of this just don't make constitutional sense. Would she have to recuse herself on the issue of this particular suit because she was Solicitor General and had the ear of the president?
I think that's possible, and we'll need to pursue that. She's been very reluctant to say she would recuse herself on a lot of these issues, so I don't know where we are on that, but I think that's something that should be pursued later today or tomorrow. I took her answers to the good questions of Senator Cornyn about the Commerce Clause and health care as being pretty expansive and pretty supportive of our government reach. So I was not encouraged by that.
Does it make sense at this time to put somebody on the court who may have to recuse himself on what might be the most important ruling of the year or the decade?
It is a huge matter. I asked her, you had that progressive question. When Lindsey Graham used the same quote, she said she was a progressive, basically, and admitted that. And progressives tend to believe that the government knows best. In the early 20th century, they advocated getting around the Constitution and constraints on power so the government could fix the problems. They're suspicious of the private sector and enamored with government policy. I think this is an unhealthy thing, frankly.
Well, Senator, thanks for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.